He entered his own luxury restaurant disguised as a man with nothing. The billionaire wanted only to test his staff, but instead he stumbled into a nightmare. A young waitress, her eyes heavy with fear, slipped him a folded napkin. Inside were words so chilling they shook his empire to its core. Poison, corruption, and a desperate secret all hidden in plain sight. She risked everything with that one note. What he discovered next would change both of their lives forever. Ethan Caldwell dressed like a man the city refused to notice. The thrift store corduroy jacket. The plaid shirt softened by time. The scuffed work boots. He left his penthouse before dusk and walked the long blocks to the Gilded Crown, the flagship steakhouse of Caldwell hospitality. Inside, a fire glowed in a stone hearth and the room smelled of seared beef, leather, and money. A quartet whispered through a standard that no one truly listened to. Crystal chimed. Laughter rose and fell like a tide. The hostess, all immaculate poise and brittle smile, swept her eyes over Ethan's clothes. She paused just long enough to communicate that he did not belong. A tablet tapped. A glance at the main floor where tuxedo jackets formed a dark garden. A decision. She led him to a two-top near the swinging kitchen doors, a table that shook when the hinges clapped and cooks shouted "Yes, chef" through the gap. It was the worst seat in the house. It was perfect. From here he could study the machine he owned. Waiters glided with predatory grace. Their smiles changed temperature with the watches on their guests' wrists. The floor manager moved like oil poured over marble. His name tag read Colin Mercer. His suit was a fraction too tight across the chest, his grin a fraction too wide. He laughed at a councilman's joke and then, the second he turned away, his face emptied to cold calculation. A busser caught a quiet rebuke and flinched. Ethan had built an empire on numbers and nerve. Hotels. Real estate. Biomed. Restaurants like this jewel box, where the margin ran on theater as much as meat. Reports said the place was flawless. Reports could not measure a soul. Tonight was another of his pilgrimages into anonymity. Not for spectacle. Not for cruelty. For calibration. If his name scared truth away, then the disguise would coax it back. She arrived with a bread basket and water as if he were a guest at the best table rather than a problem to move along. The name tag read Lily Hart. Early 20s. Chestnut hair tied back. Intelligent brown eyes that carried a quiet storm. The white apron showed faint creases that never washed out. Her black shoes were polished but thinning at the sole. The small tremor in her left hand vanished when she focused. "Good evening, sir. My name is Lily and I will be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you with something to drink?" Ethan ordered the cheapest beer on the menu. No flinch crossed her face. No narrowing of the eyes. "Of course," she said, voice steady and warm. "I will be right back." He watched her cross the floor with efficient grace, steering between suits and sequins, always aware of the room without becoming part of its vanity. A manager's gaze followed her. Mercer. Measured. Possessive. When she returned with the beer she said it gently, as if the battered jacket deserved crystal too. "Have you decided on dinner, sir?" Ethan closed the menu. The Emperor's cut. Medium rare. And a glass of Cheval Blanc 1998. For the briefest heartbeat, surprise flickered in her eyes. It died fast beneath professionalism. "An excellent choice, sir. I will put that in for you now." Her fingers moved over the POS. The alert popped for high value. At the host stand Mercer shifted, then cut a line straight toward her. He blocked her path with a body made for corners and pressure. His voice dropped. His smile did not. Ethan could not hear the words, but he could read the scene. A warning. A threat. The tilt of the head that said the boss owned the air. Lily nodded once, not in agreement but in endurance, and slipped away to the cellar. Ethan waited. The kitchen doors breathed heat and noise with each swing. He could feel the old anger rise, the kind that had powered his first deals when bankers laughed at a kid from a small Ohio town. He had come here to take a measurement. The result was already writing itself. Performance, yes. Polished surfaces, yes. But the soul of a place lives in how it treats a person who seems to carry nothing of value. Lily returned with the wine. She poured precisely. The glass caught the low light, ruby turning to black at the rim. Ethan lifted it, breathed, and tasted. It was as exquisite as he had paid for. He set the glass down and met her eyes. "Is everything all right, Lily?" "Everything is fine, sir. Mr. Mercer is very focused on standards." "I imagine he is," Ethan said. "And I imagine you are too." Something unguarded sparked, then settled. She moved on. The steak arrived. The cut was thick and perfumed with char. He ate slowly. He listened to the room. He watched the manager's orbit and the staff's careful choreography around it. He watched Lily carry the weight of more than plates. By the time coffee steamed on the table, a decision had formed in her eyes. Not a whim. Not a plea. Something heavier. She approached with steady hands, the tremor held at bay by resolve. In the fold of the linen at her wrist lay a small white square, sharp as a blade he could not yet see. The dinner crowd pulsed around Ethan Caldwell, but his attention stayed fixed on Lily Hart. She moved like a dancer trained in invisibility, every step efficient, every smile professional. Yet something beneath her composure pressed forward, as if tonight she had decided to gamble her entire life on a single act. Ethan, behind his thick-framed glasses, watched the calculation play across her face with the precision of a chess move. She cleared his coffee cup, wiped a crumb from the linen, and then her hand lingered just a breath too long. When it moved again, a folded napkin remained on the table, tucked half beneath the bill tray. A small, square mystery in plain sight. Ethan's pulse quickened. He had expected indifference, maybe pity. Not this. He let her walk away before he reached for it. His fingers closed around the soft fabric, heavier in implication than weight. He unfolded it slowly beneath the shadow of his arm. For tight lines of hurried handwriting leapt up at him. "They are watching you. The kitchen is not safe. Check the ledger in Mercer's office. He is poisoning the supply chain." The words hit like ice water down his spine. Not a request for money. Not a number. Not a complaint. A warning. Direct. Urgent. Dangerous. Ethan's eyes flicked toward the floor manager. Colin Mercer stood at the far side of the dining room, laughing with patrons, his hand on a politician's shoulder. Yet his gaze, sharp and suspicious, sliced across the floor and landed briefly on Lily before sliding away. Ethan folded the napkin back into his pocket with a motion casual enough to be forgettable. He dabbed his lips with another cloth, sipped his coffee, and leaned back in the wobbly chair near the kitchen doors. The clamor of pots and shouted orders came and went like thunder behind clouds, but his thoughts had narrowed to one line. Poisoning the supply chain. He stayed until the last ember of his cigar-shaped steak cooled. When Lily returned with the black bill tray, he laid down precise cash, exact to the cent $867.53. No tip. No credit card. No trace. The detail was deliberate, a signal to anyone who might look closer. Lily's eyes met his for a fraction of a second. Gratitude and terror blended there. She said nothing, only wished him good evening with the same steady voice. Ethan gave her the faintest nod. A silent acknowledgement that he had read, that he understood. Outside, the city pressed close. Chicago's night air smelled of rain and exhaust. Neon bled across wet sidewalks. Ethan leaned against the cool brick wall of an adjoining building, heart beating harder than it had in years. He unfolded the napkin once more beneath a street lamp. The words glowed against the fabric like fire through smoke. This was not simply about a corrupt manager skimming profits. If true, Mercer was endangering lives, undermining everything the Caldwell name promised. Luxury meant trust. Trust meant loyalty. Poison that chain, and the entire empire cracked from beneath. Ethan walked several blocks, shoulders hunched inside his thrift store jacket. He entered a narrow bar where no one looked twice at a man alone. In the back booth, he ordered whiskey neat. The glass clinked on the wood. He drew a small burner phone from his pocket. One number stored. It rang twice before a crisp British voice answered. Yes, Ethan. What have you found? Arthur Drake. Chief Operating Officer. The one man who knew of these undercover excursions. The anchor. Ethan's voice was low, sharp. The reports are lies, Arthur. Mercer is not running a restaurant. He is running something else. A waitress handed me a note. She claims the supply chain is poisoned. On the line, silence stretched like taut wire. Then Arthur replied, careful and slow. That is not an accusation we can ignore. Nor can we take it at face value. Do you trust her? Ethan remembered Lily's weary eyes, the tremor in her hand, the shoes nearly split at the seam. Fear and courage lived there together. She risked everything to tell me. That is not the action of a petty complainer. I trust her. Arthur exhaled softly. Then we act. Quietly. I will assemble a profile on Colin Mercer. His records. His accounts. His entire history. But Ethan, be careful. If what she wrote is true, this is bigger than one crooked manager. Ethan's hand closed over the napkin again. The ink smudged faintly where her pen had pressed too hard. They are watching you. He finished the whiskey, untasted. The disguise made him invisible. But now invisibility was not enough. He had walked into his restaurant searching for honesty. What he carried out was something far darker. Arthur's voice cut back in. What will you do tonight? Ethan stared into the low light of the bar. The decision was already made. I am going to see that ledger for myself. The line was silent again, but this time with resignation. Then Arthur answered. Very well. But you are not going in alone. Ethan slipped the phone into his jacket. The whiskey glass left a ring on the table. Outside, the city's hum rose like an engine. The hunt had begun. The city's heartbeat throbbed beneath Ethan Caldwell's boots as he walked away from the dim bar. Rain began to mist against the streetlights, coating the sidewalks in a silvery sheen. He moved with the pace of a man who had already decided, tonight he would see the truth with his own eyes. His burner phone buzzed. Arthur Drake's voice was sharp, efficient. I have someone who can help you. A specialist. Her name is Ren Monroe. Former MI6. Non-destructive entry and data retrieval. She's in Chicago. She'll meet you within the hour. Ethan stopped at the corner of a narrow alley. The rain hissed against the pavement. Arthur, he said, if Mercer is poisoning the supply chain, this could sink us. The press. The regulators. Millions in liability. We cannot wait for an audit. You do not need to tell me the stakes, Arthur replied. His tone softened for a moment. But do not be reckless. Ren will guide you. Use her. The call ended. Ethan tucked the phone away, heart hammering. The thrift store jacket clung damply to his shoulders. At last, headlights swept across the alley. A black sedan rolled to a stop, its windows fogged from within. The back door opened without a word. Ethan slid inside. The driver was a woman with sharp cheekbones and eyes like steel. Her hair was cropped short, her movements precise, economical. She regarded him through the mirror, her voice low and flat. Arthur said you needed a ghost. Ghosts don't come cheap. I can afford it, Ethan said evenly. Her lip twitched, something between amusement and disdain. I'm Ren. I've been briefed. You want access to Mercer's office at the Gilded Crown. Ledger, documents, computer. Is it physical or digital? The note only said ledger. Assume both. Ren tapped the wheel once. Amateur. But manageable. The restaurant closes to the public at midnight. Staff out by 1. Cleaning crew in at 4. That leaves a 3-hour window. Security system is yours, which means it's good. Cameras, motion sensors, keypad access. She cut her eyes back to him. I can break it. But the office will have its own layer. Mercer strikes me as paranoid. Paranoid men always are, Ethan said. Ren put the car in gear. Then the plan is simple. We do not break in. We walk in. I've already pulled the schedule for the cleaning company. Sparkle Clean Solutions. Arthur's people have inserted our names on tonight's roster. We go in as janitors. Invisible. Minutes later, in the concrete chill of a parking garage, Ethan shed his disguise for another, gray jumpsuit, black gloves, a laminated badge clipped at his chest. The billionaire vanished again, replaced by Mike the cleaner. Ren handed him an earpiece. Rules, she said, voice clipped. Move with purpose. Do not linger. Do not make eye contact unless you must. You are my assistant. Your only job is lookout. If you see anything, tap the comms once. No words. Got it. Got it, Ethan said. She studied him, expression unreadable. You don't look like a man who knows how to hold a mop. Then I'll learn fast, he answered. Ren zipped her duffel, now holding lock picks, signal jammers, and a camera pen. Good. Because once we step inside, hesitation will get us both caught. The sedan carried them through quiet streets to the rear of the Gilded Crown. The opulence of the front facade gave way to steel doors, dumpsters, and the faint reek of grease. A fluorescent light buzzed over the service entrance. The building's hum felt alive, like a creature sleeping lightly. Showtime, Ren murmured. 2 uniformed cleaners approached from a van, nodded briefly, then disappeared inside. Ren and Ethan followed, their forged IDs scanning green against the side panel reader. The door clicked open. The kitchen loomed before them, silent now, stainless steel gleaming under harsh light. The smell of cooked meat lingered like a ghost. Ethan pushed a mop bucket ahead of him, the handle cold in his grip. Ren moved beside him, clipboard in hand, her posture perfect mimicry of weary routine. No one looked twice. They were background noise. Exactly as planned. At the far end, the corridor leading to Mercer's office waited, lit only by a single bulb. Ethan's throat tightened. Somewhere behind that door lay the ledger Lily Hart had risked everything to reveal. Ren's voice crackled softly in his ear. We're in position. Now the real work begins. The hum of refrigerators echoed down the corridor, masking the faint squeak of Ethan Caldwell's mop. The bucket sloshed quietly, part of his disguise as a cleaner. To the staff who might glance their way on security footage, he was invisible. Just another ghost of the night. Ren Monroe, already steps ahead, moved with surgical precision. Her eyes scanned the hallway walls, noting the tiny black orbs of cameras tucked into corners. Blind spots are 10 seconds each, she whispered into the comms. Stay tight behind me. Ethan obeyed, pushing the mop in rhythm with her steps. Together they reached the end of the hall where Colin Mercer's office door loomed. It was a heavy, dark oak thing with a keypad glowing faint red. A small lens above it blinked, motion sensor, linked to the restaurant's secondary alarm grid. Ren crouched, producing tools from her pouch. 2 minutes, she said flatly. Her hands moved like a pianist's, looping the camera feed with a handheld jammer before turning her focus to the keypad. Ethan leaned against the wall, feigning the posture of a tired janitor. Inside, adrenaline burned through him. His empire stretched across continents, yet here he stood in a dingy hallway disguised as a cleaner. The irony was sharp. But the image of Lily Hart slipping him that napkin kept him steady. He thought of her weary eyes, her trembling courage. A soft click. The keypad light turned green. Ren smirked. "We're in." The office was small, suffocating in its arrogance. Framed photos lined the walls, Mercer shaking hands with councilmen, Mercer swinging a golf club mid-laugh, Mercer posing with a Little League team. Trophies glinted under cheap lighting. It was a shrine to self-importance. Ren moved instantly, checking drawers, sliding her fingers over the desk's underside. "No physical ledger here," she muttered. Her gaze swept upward. A row of management books sat untouched, spines unbroken. She tilted one, and the shelf gave a faint mechanical resistance. "Here we go." Behind the books, a wall safe. Ren straightened, her face expressionless. "This will take longer." Ethan's eyes narrowed on the Little League photograph. Mercer wore jersey number 1, holding a trophy etched with 2023. His vanity was painted in every detail. "Try the date on the trophy," Ethan suggested. "And the number." Ren entered the digits, and the safe yielded with a soft thunk. Inside lay thick stacks of cash, a passport, and one black leather-bound ledger. Beside it, a USB drive glinted like a lure. Ren snapped photographs with her pen camera, page by page. Each entry told a story of corruption, phony invoices from shell suppliers, payments rerouted through shadow accounts. But the truth was unmistakable. Mercer had been buying condemned meat from shuttered plants, product unfit for human consumption, and selling it at a premium to the Gilded Crown. He wasn't just skimming profits. He was poisoning the very customers who trusted the Caldwell name. Ren copied the USB's contents onto a secure device. Her hands were steady, unhurried, but her eyes flicked toward the door every few seconds. "He's not stupid," she murmured. "Men like Mercer always keep insurance." Ethan's pulse thundered. Insurance meant leverage. Blackmail material. Something to keep his accomplices quiet. Something to trap Lily deeper. A soft scrape echoed down the hall outside. Ethan froze, his hand tightening on the mop handle like a weapon. Footsteps. Slow. Pausing. Listening. Ren closed the safe, restoring the books to perfect alignment. She whispered, "We're done. Move." Ethan forced his breathing steady as they slipped back into the hall. The footsteps faded. A night guard, perhaps. Or Mercer himself returning late. Either way, discovery now would end them both. They rejoined the cleaning crew in the kitchen, blending seamlessly. Ethan pushed the mop across the tiles as though nothing had changed, but in his pocket lay a camera's worth of evidence that could topple an empire. When at last they stepped out into the night air, Ren exhaled. Her steel eyes flicked toward him. "You got your truth. Ugly, isn't it?" Ethan stared at the dark sky above Chicago. His disguise weighed heavier now than any suit of silk or armor. "Ugly," he said, "and only the beginning. Because the ledger was more than proof of corruption. It was a rope coiled around Lily's neck. And Mercer was the one pulling it tighter." The sedan's heater hummed as the rain drummed against its roof. Ren Monroe drove with both hands firm on the wheel, her eyes fixed ahead, her expression carved from stone. Ethan Caldwell sat in the back seat with the ledger open on his knees. The glow from the passing streetlights washed the pages in gold, then shadow. Numbers filled each line, but they were not ordinary figures. They were weapons. Arthur Drake's voice crackled through the phone. "We've decrypted the files. It's worse than fraud, Ethan. Mercer has been sourcing toxic meat from closed-down plants and disguising the orders with fake suppliers. He's been funneling the profits to organized crime. Ethan's hand clenched around the ledger. And Lily? Arthur hesitated. The videos confirm what you suspected. Mercer cornered her after a bookkeeping mistake. He inflated it into a $5,000 debt. Then he threatened to blacklist her and cut off her tips if she didn't comply. He even used her accounting knowledge to hide his own crimes. The words cut deeper when Arthur continued. He mentioned her brother by name. Kevin. He told her that without this job, Kevin's treatment would stop. She had no choice. Ethan closed his eyes, fury rising in his chest. Kevin Hart, 17, fighting for every breath, had been used as leverage by a petty, corrupt manager. She isn't his accomplice, Ethan said, his voice like steel. She's his prisoner. Arthur's tone softened, almost regretful. You were right to trust her courage. But you must understand, this isn't only about one corrupt manager anymore. Mercer is a node in a larger network. If you move too fast, you risk tipping off everyone above him. If you wait too long, Lily remains trapped in his grip. Ethan snapped the phone shut, his decision burning through him. Waiting was not an option. Ren slowed the car at a red light, studying him through the mirror. You've got the look of a man about to do something stupid. I should warn you, Mercer isn't just some greedy middleman. He's connected. That ledger is enough to bury him. Why not let the authorities move? Because Lily will still pay the price, Ethan said. His voice carried a quiet conviction that brooked no argument. She risked everything to warn me. If Mercer suspects what happened tonight, she's finished. He will ruin her, or worse. Ren gave a faint, humorless laugh. So the billionaire wants to play hero. No, Ethan corrected. The billionaire wants justice. And justice begins at dawn. Ren said nothing more, but her hands tightened slightly on the wheel. Back in his penthouse, Ethan laid the ledger on the marble counter. The skyline stretched beyond the glass, glittering with indifferent light. He poured himself a drink he didn't taste. Images replayed in his mind, Mercer's smirk, Lily's courage, the poisoned pages of that ledger. Tomorrow, the Empire would learn that its king had walked the floor in disguise. And Mercer would learn that Lily Hart was not alone. For the first time in years, Ethan felt the weight of loneliness lift, replaced by something sharper. Purpose. When dawn began to tint the horizon, Ethan stood at the window in a flawless charcoal suit. The thrift store jacket was gone. The disguise was no longer needed. Today, the fight would be waged in his true name. Arthur's call came just after sunrise. The FBI and FDA are ready to coordinate when you give the word. We can move on Mercer legally, decisively. Not yet, Ethan said. His eyes narrowed at the faint outline of the gilded crown in the distance. First, he sees me. Because before the law took him, Ethan Caldwell intended to look Colin Mercer in the eye, and remind him whose empire he had dared to corrupt. The gilded crown stirred with late-morning preparations. Staff bustled in crisp uniforms, silver trays gleaming, linens pressed. The restaurant was dressing itself for another profitable day, unaware that judgment was coming. 2 black SUVs rolled to a halt at the entrance. Their doors opened in perfect choreography. Out stepped Arthur Drake, composed and sharp in his navy suit. 2 men followed, their movements purposeful, FBI agents disguised as corporate consultants. Then the final figure emerged, commanding without needing to speak. Ethan Caldwell. Gone was the thrift store jacket and faded plaid. In its place, a charcoal suit tailored to perfection. A silk tie knotted with precision. The weight of his empire seemed to walk beside him. Every line of his posture carried authority. Inside, Colin Mercer had been pacing, waiting for a celebrity reservation he believed was arriving. When the double doors opened, his rehearsed smile flickered into something else entirely. Recognition drained the color from his face. "Mr. Caldwell," Mercer stammered. "What an unexpected, what an honor." Ethan didn't stop to shake his hand. His gaze swept the dining room until it landed on Lily Hart, standing near the hostess stand with a stack of menus clutched to her chest. Her face went pale, her eyes wide. She thought he had come to ruin her. Instead, he gave her the faintest nod. A gesture not of condemnation, but acknowledgement. "Mr. Mercer," Ethan said at last, his voice measured and resonant. "We have business to discuss." Whispers rippled through the staff. Mercer swallowed hard, gesturing toward the corridor that led to his office. "Of course. Right this way." The office door shut behind them with a soft thud. Mercer forced a smile, beads of sweat forming at his temples. "If there have been discrepancies, I can explain. Numbers sometimes appear." Ethan cut him off with a single glance toward Arthur. Arthur laid a tablet on the desk. The screen came alive with scanned pages from the ledger, fraudulent invoices, bank transfers, and shipping manifests. One by one, each document slid across the screen like evidence in a courtroom. Mercer's smile collapsed. His lips parted, but no words came. Arthur's voice was ice. "We know everything. The laundering. The syndicate money. The condemned meat. And we know you blackmailed one of your waitresses into helping cover your tracks." He swiped again, revealing still frames from Mercer's office recordings, Lily Hart cornered, her face pale with fear. Arthur swiped to the final image. Mercer loomed over her, his words captured on hidden audio. "Think about your brother Kevin. Without me, he doesn't get his medicine. Without me, he doesn't breathe." Ethan leaned forward, voice low and furious. "You used a sick boy's life as a bargaining chip. That is unforgivable." Mercer sputtered, desperate. "She helped me, she cooked the books." "Because you forced her," Ethan cut him off. He turned to the doorway. "Lily. Come in." She stepped inside, trembling but resolute. Her voice, though quiet, carried strength. "He's lying. He threatened me every day. He said if I refused, Kevin would die. He made me do it." Ethan nodded once. Then to the agents, "Take him." The cuffs snapped shut. Colin Mercer's reign of fear ended in chains. The restaurant staff had gathered outside the office, drawn by curiosity. They gasped as their manager was led through the dining room in restraints. Murmurs filled the air, shock, disbelief, relief. Ethan emerged behind him, his presence silencing the room. He looked at Lily, who stood frozen, eyes glistening with tears. He addressed her not in private but in front of them all. "Last night, someone in this restaurant showed more integrity and courage than anyone I have seen in years," Ethan said, his voice carrying across the dining room. "That person risked everything to expose a crime, not for herself, but because it was right. That person was you, Lily." Her lips parted, trembling. Tears slid down her cheeks. Ethan's voice softened. "Your fabricated debt is erased. From this day forward, Caldwell Holdings will establish a medical trust to cover your brother Kevin's care. And as for you, you are wasted waiting tables. I am creating a new role. Director of Ethical Oversight. You will oversee employee welfare and supply chain integrity. You will answer directly to me." A stunned hush fell across the staff. Lily blinked, unable to comprehend the transformation of her life in a single breath. "Say you'll accept," Ethan urged gently. Her voice broke. Yes, I accept." Relief rippled through her, so powerful her knees nearly gave way. The napkin she had slipped him the night before had not destroyed her, it had saved her. Colin Mercer was gone. But Lily Hart's story was only beginning. The afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows of the Gilded Crown, catching on crystal glasses and polished silver. What was meant to be an ordinary day of service had turned into a reckoning. Staff huddled in corners, whispering about their disgraced manager being led away in cuffs. The air vibrated with unease and something else too, relief. Ethan Caldwell stood near table 32, the very table where his test had begun. The wobbly legs no longer mattered. It had become a witness to truth. He ran his hand lightly across its surface, as if sealing the memory there. Arthur Drake approached, tablet tucked beneath his arm. His face carried the weariness of a man who had sifted through too many poison numbers. The FBI and FDA are moving on Mercer's contacts as we speak, he reported. The ledger and the USB files are more than enough. They'll dismantle the supply chain operation piece by piece. Ethan nodded once. Good. It is not just about shutting them down. It is about making sure nothing like this ever touches my empire again. Arthur studied him for a long moment. You went looking for honesty, Ethan. Instead, you found rot. Most men in your position would have buried it quietly to protect the brand. Ethan's gaze cut to Lily Hart. She stood by the bar, a few sympathetic coworkers clustered around her. Her eyes were still swollen from tears, but she held herself straighter now, a quiet strength radiating through her. I am not most men, Ethan said. His voice was quiet, but it carried finality. And she gave me back more than honesty. She reminded me why this empire exists in the first place. Arthur inclined his head, accepting the answer. The room hushed as Ethan walked toward Lily. Conversations paused, eyes turned. The billionaire towered in his charcoal suit, but his voice was gentle when he reached her. Lily. She straightened instinctively, menus still clutched in her hands. Mr. Caldwell, she whispered. You are not alone anymore, Ethan said. The threats Mercer held over you are gone. Your brother's care will no longer be a burden you shoulder in silence. And your voice, the same voice that found the courage to warn me, will now be heard inside the walls of my company. Her lips trembled. I don't know what to say. Say nothing, Ethan replied. Do your work. Live without fear. That will be enough. For a moment, silence stretched between them, filled only by the sound of her unsteady breath. Then she nodded, tears shining again, but this time they were not born of despair. Ren Monroe leaned against the wall near the exit, her arms crossed. She had witnessed the scene with her usual unreadable stare. When Ethan passed her on his way out, she murmured, You play the savior well. Ethan didn't slow. I'm not playing. Outside, the SUVs waited. Crowds had already gathered, drawn by whispers that the elusive billionaire himself had appeared. Reporters jostled for position, cameras flashing. Ethan ignored them all. Back in the vehicle, Arthur scrolled through updates streaming in from his team. The media will get wind of this soon, he said. Once they do, the story could explode. Billionaire uncovers corruption in his own empire. It can either destroy your reputation or define it. Ethan looked out the tinted window at the city sliding past. Then let it define me. Not by what was hidden, but by how it was confronted. For a brief second, his reflection overlapped the skyline, the man and his kingdom, inseparable. He thought of Lily again. A waitress in worn shoes had done what countless executives, auditors, and advisors never dared. She had spoken truth to power. And because of her, the empire would be stronger. By the time the SUVs reached his penthouse, night had begun to fall again. The city lights bloomed like stars across the dark. Ethan stood at the window, loosening his tie, the weight of the day settling in his bones. Yet inside him, something new stirred. He had started this journey to test others. Instead, the test had found him. Tomorrow, headlines would scream of scandal, conspiracy, and the fall of a corrupt manager. But beneath the noise, Ethan knew the truth. A folded napkin had changed everything, not just for his company, but for himself. And the reckoning was far from over. Morning broke over Chicago with a pale light that spilled across Ethan Caldwell's penthouse. The city stretched below, alive and restless, but the man staring out from the glass tower was different from the one who had walked into the Gilded Crown in a thrift store jacket just 2 nights before. He was not searching anymore. He had found what he came for, though not in the way he had expected. Arthur Drake entered quietly, a folder tucked under his arm. "The news has broken," he said. "Mercer's arrest. The contaminated supply chain. The evidence we gathered. Every outlet is running with it." Ethan turned from the window. His charcoal suit was immaculate, but his expression carried something softer, more human. "How is it being received?" Arthur hesitated, then allowed himself the smallest of smiles. "Better than I anticipated. The narrative isn't that your empire is rotten. It's that you rooted out the rot yourself. Courage. Integrity. Leadership. Words like that are being repeated." Ethan absorbed the words without visible pride. "It isn't about me. Not this time." Arthur studied him closely, then nodded. "Lily has reported to corporate this morning. She's still in disbelief, but she accepted the role. Director of Ethical Oversight. We'll begin building the foundation under her guidance." Ethan's chest tightened at the thought. A waitress, trembling with fear, had risen overnight into a position of real power. Not because she asked for it, but because she had risked everything for the truth. "Ensure she has every resource she needs," Ethan said firmly. "Her brother's care is already secured. But she will need protection, too. Mercer's allies won't forgive easily." Arthur tapped the folder against his side. "Already in motion." Ethan nodded once. "Good. This is not charity. It's restoration. She reminded me that wealth without conscience is hollow." Later that day, in a smaller office within Caldwell Holdings headquarters, Lily Hart sat behind a polished desk that did not yet feel like hers. She traced the grain of the wood nervously, the title on her new ID badge staring back at her. Director of Ethical Oversight. The word seemed unreal. When Ethan entered, she stood at once, still unsure of protocol. But he only gestured for her to sit. "Do you understand why you're here, Lily?" His tone was gentle, but carried the weight of command. She swallowed. "Because I slipped you a note." "No," Ethan corrected softly. "You're here because you had the courage to do what others would not. You saw wrong, and you chose to act. That is the foundation this company must be built upon." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. "I only wanted to protect my brother." "And in doing so, you protected thousands more," Ethan said. "Your act didn't just save a life. It saved a legacy." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Lily found her voice, steadier than before. "I'll do everything I can to deserve this trust." "I know you will," Ethan replied. By evening, when Ethan returned once more to his penthouse, the city outside seemed changed. Not because its lights burned any brighter, but because he finally saw them differently. He had always believed power was measured in markets, contracts, and towers of glass. But now he knew the truth. Power lay in integrity. In courage. In the simple act of a young woman, exhausted and cornered, daring to slip a folded napkin across a table. Ethan lifted the very napkin from his desk drawer. The ink was smudged, the fabric creased, but its message remained clear. They are watching you. The kitchen is not safe. Check the ledger. He is poisoning the supply chain. It had been more than a warning. It had been a mirror. And in it, he had seen not only the rot in his empire, but the path forward. As night settled once more over Chicago, Ethan Caldwell closed his hand around the napkin, not to hide it but to keep it close. It was a reminder that true wealth is not in what a man owns, but in the lives he chooses to protect. The empire would endure. But it would never be the same. And neither would he. Every act of courage, no matter how small, carries the power to change lives. Lily Hart's bravery showed that integrity is priceless and that even in the darkest situations, truth can light the way. Ethan Caldwell's journey proved that wealth and power mean nothing without responsibility to protect those who cannot protect themselves. This story is a work of fiction, written to feel realistic so that its lessons about honesty, justice, and compassion can inspire us in real life. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If it moved you, please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more inspiring dramas. And don't forget to leave a comment below, we'd love to hear your thoughts and where you're watching from.